Welcome, welcome, welcome to Awakening Potential Podcast. It's a platform that's dedicated to uncovering the extraordinary within the ordinary. Join us on a journey of self-discovery, personal growth, and inspiring transformation as we dive deep into the stories and experiences of everyday individuals from various walks of life who have turned their lives into remarkable tales of achievement. Our mission is to ignite your potential, empower you to reach new heights in your own life, which motivates you to take actions and awaken your inner hero. Today, I'm joined by Renee McKenna, a true luminary in the world of sharing her shamanic healing journey with us as she joins us with her invaluable wisdom and her life-changing moments. Get ready to awaken your potential as we embark on this enlightening conversation. Welcome, Renee, and thank you so much for taking your valuable time to join us all here today.
Thank you, Karen. And there's no better way to spend our time than to try to use our own experience to help others, right?
Absolutely, to lift, we're really lifting and empowering others to really get them to realize that anything is possible when you put your mind to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of which, share your journey. Like, when was it that you stepped into that aha moment that you knew you were just so aligned with your path and on trajectory to do what you're called to do?
Oh, that was probably about 10 minutes ago when I was talking to one of my one of my own advisors this morning. It's been a very educational path for me, so I don't think that there's been a moment.
Mhm,
Although there's probably two big turning points for me.
mhm.
And one was in my early 20s when I crashed and burned with drugs and alcohol and emotionally unavailable men and got clean and sober. That was the first big bit. That was the big shift. And even that, it wasn't like a moment necessarily, although there was a moment where things turned. My realization has been a very slow, I wake up slowly. And that opened me to spiritual practices and that there was something called spirituality. There was more going on here than my own limited ego and personal willpower, right?
Right, right.
And so the second moment, which is probably what I want to talk about today, is when I was cleaning houses. So I was a house cleaner
Mhm.
for about 12 years. It was awesome work. I had a college degree. I had tried to start multiple businesses that all failed miserably. And I needed to make rent. And so I started to clean houses and I loved it. I loved being self-employed and I've never worked for anybody else since. But probably about halfway through that journey, maybe 6 or 7 years into that work, I wasn't using all of my gifts and talents in the world. I was
Mhm.
very happy. My life was excellent. I had arranged it in such a way that I lived with roommates. I didn't have a lot of rent, so I could travel like 6 or 8 weeks a year. I had it and I made my own schedule. It was awesome, but there was a desire actually to be a little bit more engaged and fulfilled. And so I read a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which is a wonderful business book that's actually a spiritual masterpiece, but he's brilliantly couched it in practical business terms.
Absolutely.
And he talks about developing a mission statement.
Mhm.
So I developed a personal mission statement out of the work in those 7 habits. There's work to do. And I actually did the work in the book. And I started to pray actually to show me how to use all of my gifts and talents for the benefit of the most people. That became my mission statement. I would like to use all of my gifts and talents for the benefit of the most people and myself. Ultimately, I added and myself in there.
Absolutely.
And I didn't even have to know what those were. And then I'll let you get a word in edgewise. Um, and that has been a very slow unfolding of absolutely my best life.
I love it. I love it. So I really got like you're a manifester. I'm getting fathom to say you're a manifesting generator um, in the human design world. One of the things I really appreciated you saying was you added yourself into there. A lot of people forget that there's a difference between selfish and selfless. And when you get on an airplane, the first thing they tell you is put on your oxygen mask. So when you're serving others, it's not always about yourself, right? But you have to take care of yourself first in order to be there for others. And it sounds like that's exactly what you stepped into, which is beautiful. And how did that, once you declared that, and it is a declaration, your mission statement is a declaration, how did that shift your life and your business after that?
So again, it was a very slow mobilization. It was actually over the course of years.
Uh-huh.
Um, I had a bunch of people because of being in 12-step recovery. I had a plethora of relatively crazy people to help on a regular basis. And I realized, oh, I really like working with dysfunctional people, and this process that exists in most great spiritual traditions, which is that we have to give what we've received. We have to pass on what has been freely given to us in order to keep it, right? And so that's part of my work as a recovering person, is to help other people to recover. And so as I came here with a lot of emotional baggage, and so I've done a lot of therapy work, and I sat for a long time. I want to help people heal. My mother was a chronically ill person, and I knew a lot of her chronic illness was psychosomatic. And
Right.
this was a time when mind body medicine was just like this new idea that our mind and our body are connected, like shocking, right? And so I really sat for a long time. Do I want to be a physical healer? Do I want to be a therapist? Or do I want to do some kind of ministry work, spiritual, mental, or physical? Because those are kind of the three triangles of how we can heal. And I started to just take classes at school and really, because again, I wasn't escaping a terrible life. I loved my life as it was. And very slowly I started to discover more. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's not going to work for me. I was too old to become a doctor at that point. It
Right.
was because you can't join medical school after you're a certain age. So it really narrowed itself down, and I realized that, well, I was actually told, because I've always gotten help from advisors. I think being willing to ask other people for help about and just learn about their story, like this is a story podcast in some ways, right? And so story is how we learn. And there was
Absolutely.
a woman, she was actually a minister at Harvard University. I lived in Boston at the time, and she would meet with me, and she was a minister and a therapist. And so she said, it doesn't really matter which one you do first if you're interested in both. And so I found a graduate school that kind of combined those two, and there was nothing on the East Coast. So it was in California,
Mhm.
and a series of circumstances, I met this wonderful guy while I was on vacation in Ireland, and he said, oh, I can hook you up with a place to live in San Francisco for the summer because my mother needs a house sitter, so I get to live in San Francisco for free for 6 months.
Nice.
Which is awesome. And so I moved to San Francisco to go to this graduate school, and eventually he became my husband and my father of my children. And
Love that.
it all, when things are right, and timing has a lot to do with it too. Like, and that's why this slow educational, when things kind of feel like the right thing, or the doors will open up. And it all fell into place. And the most interesting thing, so I went to it's an edgy school, actually. I mean, it's on the left end of therapeutic teaching. My degree's in transpersonal psychology, my master's degree. But concurrent with that, while I was cleaning houses, I had a new client, and I went to her house for the first time, and she said, oh, that room is my therapy room. If the door's shut, you don't have to clean it. I'm going to go to school to be a therapist. What kind of therapy do you do? She said, oh, I do a blend of hypnotherapy and shamanism and Buddhist philosophy. And I was like, whoa.
Love
So
it.
I want to do a session. What is this? I'm exploring different kind of healing technologies. And it was by far the most powerful healing work I've ever done. And so concurrent with my master's degree, I started to trade house cleaning with her, and she started to teach me her work. And not long after that, she started her own school, and I was in the first class.
Love it. Love
So
it.
I transitioned
Okay.
out of house cleaning into cleaning people's souls now.
I love it. I love it. We have much in common, actually. Yeah, because it's like the right place, the right time, and the right people show up once you put your intention out there in the universe and ask for what you want and need, which I totally get you did. Most people forget to ask.
We don't
And
ask. Yeah.
so I think it's beautiful. And now look at where you're at. Before we go to where you're at and how you're managing and doing that now, and as that light in the world that you are, I'm really curious for our listening audience. What I heard you say, and I don't want to skip over that. I mean, you went through challenges in your 20s,
Oh
right?
God, I've been
And
through challenges over and over again.
right, right. You're right. I mean, life happens and it's gonna be over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
it's how we choose to respond rather than the way we react to it. You chose to respond, excuse me, you chose to respond differently when you had gotten into the space where you were drinking and doing whatever else you were doing. What was the catalyst that changed that? So this way, if our listening audience is going through their own similar challenges, what was it for you that lifted you up and got you out of it and got you into an AA meeting, or what other else supportive measures you took? And
So
look now.
the great catalyst for me and for many of us is pain and suffering, to tell you the truth. Pain and suffering are underrated as motivational change factors that, and often we won't change things because we can't imagine something different, and the universe hasn't
Exactly.
created our solutions yet. And so it's for me over and over again been when the pain of where I am
Mhm.
is worse than my fear of the unknown, that I'm willing to do something different. And
Absolutely.
so it's not any great enlightened thing. It's the path of suffering and feeling like there's no other choice. Like I'm gonna die if I keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And so that can make us willing to do something else. So
absolutely. I
that's
think,
really how it's happened for me. And I often have not, I didn't want to get sober. I didn't know anything about getting sober. Like it, but I did ask God for help.
yeah.
There was a night I'd been on a 3-day Coke run. I had called into work and told them my grandmother died, which wasn't true. And I was a wreck. I was wearing the same clothes that I started on Thursday. It was Monday morning. And I looked in the mirror in a dirty bathroom window and a dirty bathroom mirror, and I said, God help me. Like I didn't recognize myself. And yeah, I don't know how many, it wasn't like that afternoon, but within a few days, this woman came up to me, and who I had never talked to. She worked at this job that I wasn't doing a very good job at. And I didn't even like her very much. We never spoke to each other, but I didn't like her on sight. And she said, "You get high, huh?" And I thought she was going to get me high. I was like, "Yeah, I get high." She's like, "Oh, I got a story to tell you. I've been watching you." And she was an angel in my life that came down. She was an
Yeah.
ex-prostitute who went into treatment to stay out of prison, and she was my angel that saved my life. Yeah.
Mm. I love it. And again, not to skip over it, the power of prayer, right? The power of asking for what you want and need was beautiful, because I always find whenever I ask for something, it's usually within a 48-hour period, a window period, where something shows up, whether it's someone, a message from, a symbol, whatever it is. The more we become observant, the more we see that when the angels show up in our lives. That's a beautiful story. And thank you for going back there and sharing it, because it's really a great example of the dark night of the soul and how you've shifted into your superhero today and how you've become a servant leader, which is just absolutely amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't my dark night, actually. The dark night came about 6 years after that, when I had my first of two marriages. And 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 a lot of things fell apart. So and I think, for me, you have a much faster turnaround time than I do. Sometimes, again, the timing with things, I've had to wait. I've had to wait a long time for things sometimes even years.
Yeah,
And
it's not everything. It-
there's seasonal things, right? Um, and trusting the seasons. So I've had tremendous success, but I've also had tremendous failure. I filed bankruptcy. I've been divorced twice. I've been homeless. I've had affairs with married men.
uh,
And I've decided to share all that because, I'm a human, and a lot of times we feel like all these things about ourselves, we have to hide them. And there are things, I mean, not that everybody cheats, but there's healing and redemption and information in all of our human experience,
Absolutely,
in the difficult one.
absolutely. And I love your vulnerability, and thank you for sharing that. And I'm like you, I'm very vulnerable. I pour it out there. This is it. Because for me, everything is a learning lesson,
Mhm.
right? So there is no failure. It's just, what did we learn from this, and how can we expand ourselves, is my context, to become who we're choosing to become as on this journey, right? It's a journey. There are, when I say 48-hour turnover, it's not always 48 hours, but the more I observe it, the more I'm present and being in the moment, the quicker it appears to happen. Doesn't always happen. I mean, sometimes, like you said, it could take years, but the most memorable things for me were within 48 hours. And I was like, wow, like, what's to this? I just I was on someone's podcast yesterday, and we were talking about money manifestation, and it just triggered this thought for me, like, wow, I remember this when it was 48 hours and I wanted something. And what I had put out to her community was, wouldn't it be fun to just play in that? Like, what if you imagined just something small? Like, I remember doubting and my hands on my shoulders going, oh, this doesn't work. My hips rather, and saying, oh, this doesn't work. And I said, okay, universe, I would like butterflies. Show me a yellow butterfly. Thinking, I'm in Florida. Where the heck am I going to see a yellow but there were yellow butterflies all around me for 2 days. It was like amazing. And it really made me stop and pause and saying, okay, there's something to this. I would power walk, and all of a sudden, Renee, it'd be like being in the park that I've been doing for months. And all of a sudden, I noticed for the first time there's a fixed bench there in the shape of a butterfly. And I'm like, where'd that come from? It's observing. The more we are in the present moment, the more we have the ability to observe. It's almost like that red car concept, oh, I want a red car. No one else has a red car. And all of a sudden you buy the red car and you see red cars all over the place. Yeah, that whole concepts. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, you've had a journey, you have, and you've gone from that journey to the extraordinary now. Tell us something about that.
Well, so I do want to speak to this because, to me, the universe is not Santa Claus or
Mm,
Amazon necessarily. And so
yeah,
I have found it more beneficial to ask for what universal will is for me than to
absolutely.
try to manifest my own will for myself, because I often don't know what's best for me. So,
Exactly.
like, I wanted my first husband to stop drinking, and I wanted to make a lot of money doing this certain work, and I wanted certain things to happen, and I put those out there and they didn't happen. And that was the beginning of my dark night of the soul,
Mhm.
because things weren't going the way that I planned, and I put even more effort into trying to manifest those things that I wanted, and none of them happened. And it was pretty devastating for me. But there was a real spiritual maturity that came out of that, for me
Mhm.
to realize that, again, I didn't know what was best for myself. And I'm here to align with my own unique offering. We're like cells in a great body. I like to say we each have a role to play. Some are digestive cells, some are muscle cells, some are
Yeah.
hair cells, like they're all So we got to discover what kind of cell we are, and then what's our job that we do, right? And so I needed to be really realigned, and unfortunately or fortunately in my path, I've often had to kind of lose everything, that things have to fall apart in order for a new thing to come. And that's been I think that's confusing for a lot of people. And different people manifest different ways. I mean, you may be able to say, send me $100,000 and you'll get it tomorrow. That might happen for you. That isn't how it happens for
Always.
me. Right. But that's not how it happens for me. And so for me, the observation is to ask, show me my highest good. And then
Absolutely.
to be open about what that is, and to know that I don't always know what it is. That first husband, he's dead now. He died of alcoholism, right? And so that didn't work out the way that I wanted it. And I put every ounce of will, believe me, into trying to make that happen,
Okay.
because it wasn't in alignment, and all things are impermanent. And so it has been for me more and more about letting go
Okay.
and being open and curious and trying to align. Direct intention and manifestation is a questionable practice for me. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I tried more and more to just say, show me what's my highest good, and then
Absolutely.
pay attention to what that is. And over time, so I've given up. I'm on probably my 5th lifetime right now. And just 18 months ago, I sold everything I owned. It's the second time I did it. I did it when I was 28 or 30. I'd have to remember what age it was when I moved to California. And I just did it a year and a half ago, because it felt like the right thing to do, and unloaded everything out of my big 4-bedroom apartment, on the heels of a very pleasant, actually, divorce after 16 years of marriage to the father of my children, wonderful father of my children. We have a great relationship. We're just with other people now. And my daughter and I decided to move to New York, to have a girls' adventure. And she finished high school here in New York. Because that felt like the right. San Francisco was really decimated by the pandemic. And it was just kind of, there was nothing happening there. And I'm like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And these opportunities presented themselves. And so for me, if you ever saw the movie E.T., it's a wonderful movie. It's a little outdated now. I don't know how old your demographic is that listens, but so there's a little alien that lands, and the little boy discovers him, and to get him in the house, he lays out a path of Reese's Pieces. And so for me, the universe uses the Reese's Pieces method to bring me where it wants to be. I can only see the next little thing. I can't see the big picture. In fact, it's better for me if I can't, because if I knew in 2002, when I got married, that I would get divorced in 2018, I don't know if I would have got married.
Right.
And it was a wonderful and very full, and complete relationship. We did what we came together to do.
Right.
So it's better. I don't know. That's just how it works for me. I think it's different for each of us.
It is, it's a different journey, a different experience for all of us. And I like to think everything is in perfect order. Yeah, so time and space, right? And when we ask for the highest good of all, with a genuine heart, I believe that's when the path is open for us. And again, it's everybody is unique and different and has our own journey to go through, and it's never easy, and that's when we grow. So couple of things before we part ways, and I'm so grateful for your time, energy, and your wisdom. What is one big takeaway that you'd like to leave the listening audience with? And if somebody wants to reach out to you, all of your information is going to be in the show notes. So if there's like one thing that you know website, something that you want to at least verbally say for those who were listening audibly, they can get in touch with you. It's also in the show notes if they dig into Spotify and so on, that it will all be there. What's the one takeaway that you'd like to leave the listening audience with?
Healing and help are always available to us.
Mhm.
Always. And like you said, we just need to open to ask, and to be willing to receive. I think
Absolutely.
most of us limit the power of the unlimited universe and by what we believe is possible for ourselves. And so we don't ask and we don't open to receive. And so that's really the work for most of us, is to be open and willing. And then we end up, I think, on the path of our own joy and fulfillment. The more open we can be, then the more aligned we can be. And it may look different than what we think it's supposed to look like. And that's part of the open-mindedness piece, right? So
Yeah.
if people want to get in touch with me, I mean, I have tons of free and low cost and high cost content and information. And people can find me on reneemckenna.com, and all of my books and courses and my own information and how to get in touch with me to do one-on-one sessions. It's all there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Renee, thank you so much again. It's been such a pleasure, and I'm really grateful that you came and joined us. And just as a reminder to the audience, you are extraordinary. Just trust you and step into your greatness. It's a choice. Bye for now.